Let your patriotic values guide how you invest your money and save for your future. With Monorail's Patriot Portfolio, your investment dollars get out of globalist corporations and into companies that support Christian and American values. Monorail is perfect for anyone who wants to learn how to invest their money like a pro, or a conscious-minded investor that wants to put their money where their values are. Open an account today at monorail.com/Kirk. That's monorail.com/Kirk. So yesterday, President Donald Trump had a dinner with Bibi Netanyahu and was asked about more arms to Ukraine. He broke some news saying that he was going to supply more armaments to the Ukrainian cause. Play cut 322. We do not have 322. Okay, so I guess I'm looking at something different. So I'll just tell you what he said. So President Donald Trump basically said, we are going to send more arms to Ukraine, and that he's not happy with Vladimir Putin. Now, you have to wonder, President Trump is very frustrated with Putin. I personally, this is my own kind of through line and continuity. Obviously, I support the president 100%. He knows stuff that I don't know. I don't love the idea of sending arms to Ukraine. That's just a difference of opinion. People can disagree. Maybe it's a time to regain leverage against Putin. I can understand that in the art of the deal. So I can understand that to a certain extent, but further funding a kinetic conflict against Russia and the Russian Federation is not our fight, not our conflict. And honestly, we have to be consistent. We were against it with Biden. Why would we be for it now? Unless it gets us to a peace settlement. Let's go to 322, please.
Are you planning to send more weapons to Ukraine?
We're going to send some more weapons. We have to. They have to be able to defend themselves. They're getting hit very hard now. They're getting hit very hard. We're going to have to send more weapons. Yeah, defensive weapons primarily, but they're getting hit very, very hard. So many people are dying in that mess.
So let me tell you probably Putin's calculation here, and this would be the defense of President Trump, even though I'm not thrilled about it. I think that it's time to cut off the funding of this war and make these sides fight for themselves. I've said that entire time, and I'm going to be consistent on that. But if I were to defend President Trump, because I think first of all, he's usually right on this stuff on foreign policy. What President Donald Trump is saying here is basically Putin smells weakness, and if there is no sign of strength from the West behind Ukraine, Putin will just continue to march forward. Now, it's a very interesting thing. I was sitting with a senior official from the State Department this last weekend, and I was picking his brain. I said, isn't Russia suffering major losses? He said, oh, yeah, Russia is suffering huge casualties, massive. So I asked the question, I said, well, then why isn't Putin feeling any domestic political pressure to end the war? And he said, that's a great question. So basically, and I was educated on this last weekend, is that Putin, very smart, very sinister, has divided Russia into effectively two countries. There is Moscow and St. Petersburg, which is the wealthier parts, the very wealthy industrial parts of Russia. And then there's the rest of Russia, basically all rural Russia, which is very, very poor, basically second or third world poor. So what Putin has done is when he does conscriptions, he hasn't actually done a draft actually since the breakout of the war. Instead, what he does, because a draft would be very politically unpopular, what he does is he goes to the rural areas and he offers a ridiculously high signing bonus, more than what anyone would make in a year in these very poor areas. So these young men sign up for this signing bonus, and the cannon fodder basically comes from places like Chechnya and Dagestan in the Muslim regions. And Putin has not touched like a single person, a single young man from Moscow or St. Petersburg, because if he were to start to try to do a draft in Moscow and St. Petersburg, he would have a major political problem on his hands. If all of a sudden that the more wealthy, educated, like the teachers and the professors and the engineers in Moscow and St. Petersburg, if their sons were going to go die, this war would be over very quickly. The children of people who could not bring down his government are the ones that are getting torched. And that was a real aha moment for me because, look, Russia historically does well with a war of attrition, but Moscow is a first world city. It's a very wealthy city. It's not, again, Russia is not necessarily wealthy like America, but understand this is kind of like a Russian version of the Fortunate Son. And that is why Putin is able to continue. The fact that he's losing thousands of people a week, He is staying away from the quote-unquote sons of the Russian ruling class, and he has bought at a very, let's just say, high price, the lives of cannon fodder from the rural areas.